Hi, my name is Stacy Scott, and I did my analytical report on marriage and pornography. And I took a survey that I focused on two variables. They asked people whether they thought marriage was important, and they also asked people if they thought viewing pornography would affect breakdown of morals. So I wanted to see if there was a correlation with those who thought marriage is important, might also feel that pornography would affect morals. I had the hypothesis that would be the case, and there's been a lot of studies that show that pornography affects the mind of an individual and therefore affects how they think and act and feel about sexual relationships. So there's been studies that have shown that the importance of marriage among men and women has changed, and it's partially due to the viewing of pornography. There's also been a study that pornography does lead to the breakdown of morals. So these studies that have been done do support my hypothesis, and I would hope that people would feel marriage is important, but also be aware of the dangers of pornography and the addiction that comes with it. So there's always the question of why should we care, why should we study about it? There's this great quote that I'm going to read by Carleton College. He said, I do not believe the greatest threat to our future is from bombs or guided missiles. I don't think of our civilization will die that way. I think it will die when we no longer care. Arnold Toynbee has pointed out that 19 of 21 civilizations have died from within, and not by conquest from without. There were no bands playing and flags waving when these civilizations decayed. It happened slowly, in the quiet, in the dark, when no one was aware. I think pornography could possibly be that source of the breakdown of morals, and eventually the breakdown of our society. I think it's a very important topic to study and discuss, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. And education is really important about this subject. For my literature review on my paper, I had a couple different sections, and one of them I talked about pornography and relating to morals. And I think pornography has a huge influence on the way men and women view women's rights. So if marriage were important to a person, I would hope that a person would respect themselves and their spouse enough not to want to be exposed to these materials. Elise L. Karst, she wrote an article about how anti-pornography movements should not focus on changing the laws, but rather promoting good morals and education about the harm of pornography. She stated, pornographic materials and the practices surround them are themselves an affront to the dignity of women, not least because women are viewed as objects, dehumanized and depersonalized instruments for the satisfaction of men's sexual desires and whims. Pornography may reflect the way we see ourselves as women and men, but it also teaches us ways of seeing and ways of being. It shapes and fosters attitudes, expectations, patterns of desire, of sexual arousal and response, and other overt behaviors that can result in harm to women. Not only physical, violent, and forceful sex, but also disdainful and dismissive treatment, incapable with our status as equals. So, I mean, it says right here, like, the way pornography harms women is can be detrimental, especially in a marriage relationship. There's this study that was done on a college campus, and they just basically asked people, if you knew that your partner was viewing sexually explicit material, how they would feel about it. And majority of them said they didn't have a problem with it. And I think that's really sad because I think most of those people do not have the education of the effects that pornography has on them. Another part that I studied for my review was just the attitudes towards marriage relationships. And it has been a study that has been done over the last decade, and the lack of desire for real physical relationship has been a devastating effect on the importance of marriage. In addition to decreasing desire for natural sexuality, significant changes and shifts in the view of marriage have occurred, including variables and alternatives like same-sex marriage and cohabitation. Kaufman and Goldstein they have also studied a little bit about the attitudes in marriage and how it's changed. And they said attitudes toward marriage and other family-related roles have changed dramatically over the last several decades. Whereas few Americans considered family decline to be a major problem in 1980, almost 10% listed family decline as the most important problem in 1996. So there's this shift about marriage that's happening too, and I mean, it could be a correlation because of pornography, but I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. So with my lit review and my hypothesis, I took a survey. It was from the General Social Survey taken from 1972 through 2008. The independent variable was they asked the importance to being married. So people were asked, what do they think being married? It was scaled from, was it very important to not important? And I took the variables and just made them so that they were just three variables pretty much, or just two variables with this one. So it was important and not important. And so the dependent variable that I was comparing it with was to see if they thought that sexual materials lead to the breakdown of morals. And it was a simple yes or no, and there was also a don't know as an option. So that one has 3. So we can look at my hypothesis as, does those who think marriage is important also feel like pornography leads to the breakdown of morals? So you can kind of see that in that model. So these are the results that we got. So on our graph, we can see it pretty well. We have the important and the not important. So those are whether they think marriage is important or not. So if we looked at those who thought marriage is important, we can see that they also have the highest, with also answering yes, that pornography leads to the breakdown of morals. The no is not that far behind, and the don't know is almost the same as no as well. Then we can look at those who felt marriage was not important, and it actually goes the opposite. So the don't know and the no are higher than the yes about pornography and the breakdown of morals. And it can break down a little bit more in our tables. So the conclusion would be the data doesn't strongly agree with my hypothesis, but it does show a slight trend in the favor of my hypothesis. So there was a slight higher percentage of those who feel marriage is important, would also feel that pornography would lead to the breakdown of morals, and it was reversed in those who didn't feel marriage was important. I would hope that those who felt marriage was important would also have respect for themselves and their spouse, not to be exposed to the materials. But I think it also goes back to the education factor that many people don't know the real effects pornography can have on a person in a relationship. So the what now? There's other studies that could be done. We could look at the breakdown between how men and women feel about marriage and pornography. So if we were to split that study and look specifically at just the men and the women, we might get different results. But I think the big take-home message is we need to educate the public from the dangers of pornography. From this study alone, we can see that really people don't know. They don't understand what pornography can do, and I think it's a very important thing. So my suggestion from this whole thing is that we need to really get on the forefront of this battle of pornography and really educate people about what can happen when people are viewing pornography. So